So talking about the first topic, which is Active Directory Management. Now, as I said earlier, Active Directory Management has 5 major components: user, computer, group, contact, and the most interesting is file server management. Before that, may I know how many of you use ADManager Plus currently? Okay, perfect. So among all these options, so you would see these options in almost any Active Directory software, but file server management is something that is going to be a bit different when compared to the other softwares. So let me start with user management, and I'll talk about file server management in the later part of the section. So in user management, as Derek explained, you have something called user creation templates. So you'll be able to create templates, customize it based on your requirement, and then assign the template to any user in the sense any user of ADManager Plus, so that they log into the application, the template gets preloaded, and they see the fields that you want them to see, and the others are restricted. So that's how you customize a template and then grant it to technicians. And why do you need a template? For a simple reason, for uniformity. So if considering a setup of a school or a college, so you have different departments, you have different templates. So template is going to be a one-time creation. All you need to do is just set up a template once and then use the same template for provisioning users, n number of users. And you also have templates for modifications as well. And you have an extra advantage while using the user modification templates, which is you can create roles, which is modification rules, and then define it in the template. For example, if a user A gets promoted, and if you want these attributes to be updated for that user account, instead of updating them one by one, what you do is you define or you create a modification role within the template and then apply the template to modify the user. So it's just going to be a one-step operation. And once you apply the template, all the attributes would be modified depending on the modification rules that you have defined within the template. And so this is how the screen would look like when you go to the AD Management tab. So you have various tabs here at the top, starting from Home to the Support tab. And we are now talking about the second tab, which is AD Management. So AD Management has all these options here that you see in the left-hand side. So talk about any kind of modification, this application will be able to perform it for you. So, and again, once again, some of the key features are, in order to, for example, bulk or manage user accounts in Active Directory, some of these options like move users or modifying the group attributes of users would be very helpful for you. And in most cases, in this AD Management, the user creation templates would be the key selling feature. The reason is it is completely customizable in the sense you can create a template based on your own requirement and then assign it to your technicians. So that is AD Management. And as you can see here at the bottom, you have options for managing Exchange as well. So you have modify SMTP address. In simple, you'll be able to create a mailbox, manage its permissions, and also delete mailboxes. And we also do have a backup option, which is restore deleted users. So just in case you have accidentally deleted users, of course, we do have another separate software for this, which is Recovery Manager Plus. And apart from that, if you'd like to just restore deleted users, simply go to restore deleted users, type in the name of the user, and then hit restore. So the users will be restored from the deleted objects container in Active Directory. So this is, if you are going to perform the same operation in Active Directory or without using ADManager Plus or without using any third-party tools, it's going to be a bit of a Herculean task. The reason is the deleted objects container is, so it's going to be a hidden container. So you should have sufficient rights in order to query the deleted objects container, retrieve the objects from it, and then restore. So in order to avoid or in order to overcome all such challenges or complex tasks, you have something called restore deleted options, which gives you the option to restore accounts just from this user interface, simple user interface. And file server management. Let's say you have a confidential folder and you want that folder to be shared only to a few top-level admins or top-level IT people in your organization for some reason. And the file server management will be able to meet your exact requirement in this scenario. In the sense, all you need to do is just go to file server management, select the folder that you want, and set the access control entries on that selected folder. Not only that, if you'd like to wipe out the existing permissions on the shared folder, you can even do that. So we have an option called remove existing permissions and apply only the selected ones. So in that option clearly says you define certain set of ACE entries, you select a checkbox and hit modify. The moment you hit modify, all the ACE entries that you have defined will be set on the folder and the rest will be wiped out. So that is file server management. And you can do this for any number of users or any number of groups. So managing permissions on folders is going to be a bit more easy when compared to the native tools. So you need not manually choose the folder every time. Just traverse to the folder, choose it, and then set permissions. That's going to be a bit of a task. Instead, you can do it from a single user interface, a simple user interface. So reporting. So since Derek has discussed more about the Active Directory management part, I'll be focusing more on the other features. So reporting, as I said earlier, has more than 150 plus reports, and that could give you information on all aspects of Active Directory, starting from users to network permissions, share permissions or folder permissions, to compliance reports. You have everything here. And may I know how many of you use Exchange or Office 365 or Google Apps in your organization? Okay, perfect. So we have Office support for Exchange, Office 365 as of now, and you can even provision Google Apps accounts, but the reporting is limited to Exchange and Office 365, and Google Apps is on the way. So you can generate report, not only provision users from the application, that is taken care by the management part. You'll be able to create generate reports using this application. So as I said earlier, starting from users to permissions to any kind of report that you are looking about. So if you are planning to clean up your Active Directory, one report that would be very useful for you is Inactive Users. So this report will give you the last time the user logged in, or let's say if you're going to search for users who have not logged in for the last 90 days, you can just go ahead and click on the Inactive Users report, type the number of days as 90, generate the report, get the report, and then manipulate the user accounts based on your requirement. So that is Inactive Users. And if you'd like to get the last logon time of a user, when did the user last log in? So you have a recent last logon. May I know what would be your major requirement when it comes to reporting? What kind of reports are you finding it hard to get from Active Directory, so that I'll be able to better drive this session? Do you have any specific requirements that you'd like to be met by the application? Any kind of reports that you'd be interested in? Okay. Okay, so that will be taken care by altogether a different application, which is because that has to be queried from the application logs. So that will be taken care by Event Log Analyzer. We have another application. So any Active Directory related logging or any security logs related logging will be captured by ADAudit Plus. So that's the next application. So the kind of reports that you'd be getting from ADManager Plus are going to be live data. So auditing kind of stuff will be dealt by ADAudit Plus, whereas this is going to be live data. Let me tell you how this application works. So this application basically tries to contact all your domain controllers. Let's say you install it on your laptop, which is connected to your domain, and the minute you install it, this application is smart enough to detect the domain controllers within that domain. And the minute you generate a report, a query will be targeted, an LDAP query will be targeted to all the configured domain controllers. And that is how the information is retrieved from Active Directory by ADManager Plus. So it's all in terms of LDAP queries. So you can be sure that the information that you are seeing on the screen after you generate a report is going to be accurate, because it is just going to be plain LDAP queries in the background. So that's how it works. Okay, so to give you more insight into Active Directory, we have logged out users, disabled users, or soon to expire user accounts. So you can just go ahead and generate the report, and if you are not interested in manually generating the report every time, this application has a robo reporter which will generate the report for you, and it will email it to your inbox. So, yep. Okay. Okay, absolutely. I cannot give you an exact number on how soon the data will be reaching you. It depends on the bandwidth and all those stuff. But we have had, we still have customers who have close to 150 or 200 domain controllers in a single domain that are split into multiple sites. So all you need to do is just make sure that the server or the computer on which you're installing this application on is reachable or is pingable by the other domain controllers. All you need to do is just the ping test. So just make sure that the response time of a ping test is is fast, so that you'll be able to get a considerate amount of responses from the application as well. So it is the same time that you'd be, for example, if you're generating a query, a manual query using PowerShell without using this application, I can be sure, I'll tell you that this is going to be a bit more faster than that. So because you have some tweaks within the application that you can perform so that this application gives you faster replies. Okay. Yes. Okay, and that is again going to be an auditing question, which will be answered by ADAudit Plus. So in ADAudit Plus, you have something called as Account Lockout Analyzer that would look into 5 aspects of an account getting locked out, and then it will tell you the exact reason for the lockout. So that is Account Lockout Analyzer, which we have in ADAudit Plus. Okay, you're welcome. So these are some of the reports, and the features within the reports would be this. So if you are not interested in manually generating the report for an entire domain, instead you have a large environment, you just want to focus on a specific OU, an organizational unit, you have organizational based queries. And I was talking about the Robo Reporter, which is creation of report schedules. So you can just pick the reports that you'd like to be emailed to your inbox, and the application would generate the report and it would trigger an email. So that is scheduling of reports. And the next thing is column customization. If you're looking for any kind of information pertaining to users or groups or contacts or computers, you have something called as column customization as soon as you generate a report. So once the report is complete, all you need to do is just click on Add or Remove Columns, which is just above the report. I'll show you a screenshot. So you can just go ahead and choose any kind of attribute or any attribute that you want or that you'd like to be displayed in the report. And exporting reports. So to make it ready immediately, all you need to do is just generate any report that you want. You are free to export it into 5 different formats. And I'll talk about the last feature when I go to the slide. So this is what I was talking about, organizational based query. So by default, this application will be targeting the entire domain. And the number of domains that this application can handle is completely based on the licensing module that you purchase. So if you are going to leave it to the default values, which is the entire domain, the result will be, or the report will give you the data of the entire domain. Instead, if you'd like to focus just on a specific OU, all you need to do is just click on Add OUs and then target the intended OU. Okay, all it needs to do is it needs to be configured within the application. And do they have trusts between, or do they? Okay, no worries. So all you need to do is just configure an account which has sufficient privileges. The first step, as soon as you install the application and when you configure a domain, it would ask you for a credential which is going to actually, manage the domain or perform the actions that you want to perform in that domain. So if that account has sufficient privileges and the domain controllers are reachable, then it shouldn't be a problem. So it can be within a single forest or it can be a multi-forest environment with no trust in between. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have something called as detailed group members. I believe since you're using the application, you'll be familiar with that. So you have detailed group members report within ADManager Plus. So all you need to do is, now that report, the speciality of the report is, the report will not just give you the users within a selected group, but it would also list the other components within the selected group. In the sense, the other groups that are member of the parent group, the other contacts that are member of the parent group, the other computer accounts that are present within the parent group. So that is detailed group members. Absolutely. You can filter based on the objects that you're looking for. So if you're looking for the parent group as well as its group memberships, you can filter out group objects alone or computer objects alone. So, and this is the column customization that I was talking about. So as soon as you generate any report, if you have a look at the right-hand side of the screen, you would find something called Add or Remove Columns. Just click on that and you would have a pop-up window and you would have select available attributes and selected attributes. All you need to do is just select and drag the attributes that you want to be displayed in this report to the other side. So as soon as you hit save, the view will get modified based on the attributes that you have selected here. So for example, this is going to be an inactive users report. So any report that is pertaining to users would have all the columns that you see in the left-hand side, which is under available attributes. So any user attribute that you think of can be displayed in this report. So all you need to do is just select and add them to the report. I'm sorry, sir. On attributes, okay. So you'll be able to get a list of, may I know what's the purpose of that, sir? Is it something like to find out the empty attributes? Mm-hmm. Okay. So your requirement will be met partially, but not by ADManager Plus. Since you're looking or since you're targeting a specific attributes and its changes, that should be available in ADAudit Plus. So ADAudit Plus, basically, since it is a change auditing software, it will give you the old value as well as the new value, values before and after changes. And also it will let you know who has done the change and at what time and from which IP address. Okay, I'm afraid that requirement cannot be met, sir, but let me have a word with my team in order to check for this feasibility. So I'll mark it down, sir. So just to make sure, you're looking for a specific attribute and its associated changes. Okay. Okay, so this is exporting of reports into different format. So these are the 5 formats that are available. So if you need a report, if you need to send it across to your managers or to your colleagues, all you need to do is just generate the report, export it into any format that you require, and send it across. And on the fly AD management. So this, I would say, is the most user-friendly way of managing users in Active Directory. So the only thing that you'll have to do is just generate the report, and once you have the result in the screen, just go ahead and select the check boxes which you have in the far left-hand side of the screen, or right-hand side of the screen, I'm sorry, and then you click on More Actions, select the category, and then you can perform any action that you want on the selected user accounts. So for managing users, you need not go to the AD Management tab. You can just do it from the reporting section itself. for, for convenience. All you need to do is just generate the report and then go ahead and manage users. So just have a look at the options that are available. You even have an option to manage your Exchange servers from within the application. Exchange servers in the sense your Exchange mailboxes. All you need to do is just go to the select category and you would have something called Exchange attributes, modify Exchange attributes for users. And not only one by one, but also in bulk. Yes? Absolutely, sir. So this by default, as I said earlier, targets the entire domain. So if you're not going to choose an OU before generating a report, the result will show you the criteria for the entire domain. But if you'd like to just target a specific OU, all you need to do is just target the OU and then generate the report. So the report will contain only the objects within the selected OU and not the entire domain, so that you can just go ahead and do a check all and then manage those users. Okay, so you can do it either way. So you can just go ahead and filter it out based on OUs, or generate the report and then filter out the OU, or just go ahead and choose the OU and then generate the report. So either way, it's possible. Yes, absolutely. So we have something called as delete policy within the application. I'll be able to show it to you when we sit on a one-to-one session. So you have something called delete policy within the application. Now, whenever that delete policy, when you configure the delete policy, will ask you or will prompt you to choose the attributes that are related to the user account that you'd like to delete when deleting the user account. So you delete a user, and it would ask you whether should I be applying the delete policy for this user account. If you say yes, then the objects related Exchange mailboxes, the home folders for users, and all of the attributes will be wiped out from Active Directory as well. So yes, that can be done. Yes, it would. So that's the advantage of the delete policy within ADManager Plus. So you simply select, but we'll have to make sure that the account which you have configured for managing that specific domain has sufficient rights to access the location. That's the only requirement. Okay, so these are some of the features that you have within the reporting part of the application. And next comes delegation. So when I talk about delegation, it is all about customized roles. And roles are nothing but they are permissions that you are going to delegate to users. So you are an administrator and you have a staff. So you create a set of roles, or something like reset password, unlock account. You create a customized role and then grant it to the staff, so that the staff logs into the application and he or she just does that and nothing else. So by granting a role to a technician or to a staff, you are in no way going to touch or alter the user's native Active Directory permissions. So that's the best part. Let me show you how this is done. So that's the first point. So many users would think that, okay, if I grant a role to a user, if I grant a role of a super admin by mistake to a normal user, that would alter his Active Directory permissions. No, that's not going to be the case. Even if you're going to grant a normal user the role of a super admin by mistake, that's not going to alter his or her Active Directory permissions. The permissions would still hold, will be good only within the ADManager Plus application. The moment the user signs out of the application, his or her Active Directory permissions will still remain unaltered. So that's the best part. So the task controllers refer to the help desk roles that I was talking about. Roles will contain the permissions that you're going to delegate. So since you are free to choose the roles that you're going to assign to a technician or permissions that you're going to assign to a technician, you have complete control over permission management of help desk tasks. So this is how a role would look like. So all the checkboxes that you see here are going to be permissions that you'll be delegating to this role or assigning to this role. So once you have created a role, you simply grant this role to a technician. So you can just go ahead and define any type of restriction that you want. If you don't want this technician to modify users, just go ahead and uncheck modify users checkboxes. and then assign the rest of the permissions. Or if you have given this technician the permission to create users, but you don't want this user to deal with certain attributes, you can go ahead and even restrict the attributes by clicking on the link here, right here, user attribute privileges. So not only OU level restrictions, but also attribute level restrictions is what we are talking about here. So you, mm-hmm. Absolutely, and thank you so much for asking the question. So I was about to say that. So we have something called as impersonate as admin within the application. So what you do is the moment you add a technician and you assign the technician a role, it can be any role. So it can be role XYZ and can contain any permissions, any level of permissions. We have something called as impersonate as admin. The moment you enable impersonation for that technician will be using the privilege of the service account. So if not, the technician will be using his own native permissions for performing those actions. Only, let me to better explain the scenario. I'm adding a normal user to ADManager Plus, and I impersonate, I enable impersonate as admin for that specific user. In that case, the normal user will be logging into the application, but he will be using the privilege of the service account to perform those actions. And if impersonation, I'm sorry? Okay, okay. I have answer for that too. Thank you so much for asking. So if impersonation is not enabled, then the user will be using his or her own native Active Directory permissions. So irrespective of the role, only when I have sufficient permissions, native Active Directory permissions for performing the actions defined in the role, the result of the action will be a success. Else, if I try to do something through the application, I'd be getting an access denied error message, as simple as that. Yes. Okay, similar questions. I do get it. Thank you so much for asking once again. So we have something called as you said, yes, if I use, let's say, ADAudit Plus, and then if I try to view the changes, it would say that the administrator has done these many changes. But in reality, it's not the administrator, it is the help desk technician who was impersonating as the administrator who has done those changes. And how would I find out whether it is the admin or whether it is the help desk technician who has done the change? So to answer that, we have something called as, we have a dedicated report within the application itself, which is called as Audit Reports. So that will give you the exact change done by any technician, any configured technician, irrespective of whether or not impersonation is enabled. And as in the case of any report, this can be scheduled as well. So if you'd like to track the change of a technician that he has done in the last 90 days or in the past 1 year, you can just go ahead and generate the audit report for a custom period, let's say 365 days. It will give you the exact changes, even the attribute level changes done by the selected technicians. So the auditing event will not be skipped. Okay, since we enable impersonation, it is going to be a database check, and you'll be able to generate report from the application. May I know what type of API are you talking about, sir? Okay, I might have to check for the feasibility, but to be frank, till the moment we have not, explored that part of the application. Okay, so that is in the roadmap of AD360. So we are planning on a tight integration. During the start of the session, I mentioned that AD360 is a platform on which you have 4 modules: management, auditing, self-service, and exchange reporter plus. So we are planning on a tight integration so that you can just minimize or cut down few reports from ADManager Plus, so that the reports meet your purpose. So you just generate one report and get the information that you want, instead of generating 2 different reports from 2 different applications. Absolutely, sir. So I'm sorry, the screenshot. Okay, that's the screenshot. So you have something called as custom attributes here, just below it. So you'll be able to manage that. So if you don't want to delegate the rights to custom attributes to the role, you can even restrict that. So you have options to do that too. You're welcome.
So in the event log, if you make a change through Audit Manager,
Mm-hmm.
does the event log show the service account or the actual person?
Okay.
Or is it only in the Audit Manager that you can see the person?
Okay, it's only within the ADManager Plus. So if you're going to have, and let me be clear here, if you have enabled impersonation for a technician, and if you're going to, if you have a look at your audit logs, I'm not talking about ADManager, your event logs, it would say that the administrator has done these changes. The service account has done these changes, and not the actual helpless technician. So in order to find out whether, if you have a compliance requirement, you can always generate the audit reports available within the application itself.
That's what I'm saying. If we use this
Mm-hmm.
tool, you can't use your event logs really to find out who's done what because it will always show you service account.
Okay, so in this case, we'll have to weigh two different things here. So you'll have to either, elevate this user's permission in Active Directory, or simply impersonate this user as an admin and then generate the audit reports within ADManager Plus. So we'll have to weigh two different things: generating two different reports, or elevating the user's permission in Active Directory.
Okay, but if I've got the right permissions in AD
Mm-hmm.
and I'm logged into Audit Manager,
Mm-hmm. You need not enable impersonation.
no impersonation, does the event log show service
Absolutely.
account or me?
It's your account that will be listed in this. Only when impersonation is enabled for a user, the service account will be listed. If impersonation is not enabled, in the sense, I'm going to use my own native permissions for performing those changes. And if I have a look at the event log, then it's going to list this. It's going to say that I have done these many changes, and not the service account.
So you'd also have to have name accounts in Audit Manager.
Ah, yes. So, okay. Mm-hmm.
Your AD Audit Plus.
ADManager Plus.
Sorry, AD Audit Plus.
Uh-huh.
Particularly record whatever is being called by somebody who's impersonating at the moment.
Yes, if impersonation is enabled, then it is something like wearing a mask. So if I impersonate as an admin, I'm just going. The moment I step into Active Directory, I'll be stepping in as that admin and not the user. The admin has these many changes. If I don't have the mask, if I remove impersonation, it is going to use my credentials, and that credentials will be logged in the security logs. So the moment you generate the report in ADAudit Plus, it would tell that I have done the change, and since I don't have any impersonation, it would tell me that I have done these many changes.
So once you integrate this tool in the AD Audit Plus, from AD Audit Plus, you should be able to then generate a report
Saying that,
made the change.
absolutely.
So that relationship is not there.
Not there at the moment. Have I answered your questions pertaining to delegation? Okay. So let me talk about workflow a bit more later. So we are nearing the end of the presentation. I'm just going to talk about automation here. So I was talking about all these management activities that I just discussed with you. So managing users, managing groups, managing computers, and all those stuff can be automated. Not all of them, but the crucial tasks can be automated. So to better explain what is automation or how this automation works, I'm going to share a real-time example. So which is cleaning up your Active Directory, in the sense removing inactive users or removing inactive computers from Active Directory. And how can you do that without any user intervention? So automation is all about two things. One, you have automation itself, and you have something called automation policy. So policy contains a set of rules based on which the application will be acting. So if you want the application to act in a sequence for performing any kind of management actions, you can define a policy and then link it to the automation. So let me explain it with an example. Okay, so this is the cleanup example that we are going to discuss about. So first, the automation will find out the users who are inactive for the past, let's say, 90 days or 120 days, users who have not logged in. and then the automation would automatically disable those accounts. It would move those accounts to a different OU, and then wait for another 30 days or 60 days, and then delete those accounts. So this is a complete cleanup. Now, as I said earlier, since I have a sequence, I'll be creating an automation policy and then link the automation policy to the automation part. So this is how a policy would look like. Oops. So this is how a policy would look like. The basic cleanup process, this is the name of the policy. I've created a sample policy. Now this policy has 4 steps within it. Now what are the 4 steps? It would find out the list of, it would first disable the users, that is the first action, and then it would move those users to a different OU, and the third action is delete users. So this policy has 3 steps. And how do I find out inactive users? I need to have a mechanism to find out inactive users from Active Directory, and that is in the form of a report. So I said ADManager Plus has more than 150 plus reports. So I'm just using one of the report as an input for this automation. And I'm going to schedule this on a monthly basis, let's say on the 1st of every month at 10 a.m. So on the 1st of every month at 10 o'clock, ADManager Plus would generate inactive users for the last 90 days or 120 days based on what I define, and then it would start executing the automation policy without any user intervention. That is the best part here, and that is why it is called as automation. So it would start executing the automation policy. It would first find out the inactive users, disable them, wait for another 30 days or wait for another 20 days, move them to a different OU, wait for another 50 days, delete those accounts. So, okay, so that is in the automation policy. So I have it in the others, I have it in I can show it to you. So you have 2 stuffs here. You have automation and automation policy. So whenever you have a sequence of operations to be automated, you create a policy and then link it to the automation. So right now I have already created a policy. The policy has all the steps defined. And now that I've created a policy, I'm linking it to the automation. So the sequence will be available in the automation policy. So that brings us to the end of ADManager Plus. Any questions for me? Sure, I can. Yes, sir. So it completely works on the last modified, if to be more technical, it works on the last modified timestamp. So just looks at the last modified timestamp and then proceeds for the next step. So that's how it works. And
So even though the modifications might be different, might be the move of the OU.
okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Can you?
Guy was asking about whether it looks at when it was moved
Mm-hmm.
at OU, but if it's just looking at a modification timestamp, it could be for a totally different modification, not the actual move. I know it is, but it may not be the last one. Yeah.
Okay, so in that case, we have something called as correlation. So if an attribute does not satisfy the requirement, for example, it compares all the attributes in the list, and if that list has the set of attributes matching, then the move will take place. Else, there comes correlation. The next attribute will be used. A next unique attribute will be used to identify the actual position of the user in Active Directory, based on which the account will be moved. So you have attribute correlation happening too, whenever an automation is executed. So, yeah. Okay. So, now that is something built in. Now this application looks for 6 attributes. Now that basically has to be matched or mapped every time an automation is to be executed. Only when that criteria matches, you'll be able to, the automation will be able to proceed to the next task. So else you would be able to find out the status, or you'll be getting a message stating that this automation is unable to execute due to so and so reason. So you'll be able to find out the exact reason for the failure too. So. Okay, that's when correlation comes into picture, sir. So
But you're also disabling that object type, aren't you?
yes, we have already disabled. I mean, you can just go ahead and decide any sequence that works for you. So you can go ahead and disable the object first, and then execute the automation. You can just go ahead and decide any sequence in the automation policy, so that if you don't want the attribute to be modified, you can keep it in a separate OU, and then have the permissions only for the service account on the assign permissions only for the service account on that OU. You can even do that. I mean, I'm just giving you a workaround, so that if you don't want the attributes to be modified in any manner, so all you need to do is just first disable the accounts, move them to a separate OU, make sure that only the service account has access on that specific OU, so that none of the users get modified, and then proceed with the next step. So, and I forgot, yes, sorry. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's okay. So that's the part I skipped. So forgive me for that. So I was talking about, was about to talk about workflow. So I wanted to talk about automation first, and then go to workflow. So we have something called as workflow within ADManager Plus. Now, since this application is going to manage your Active Directory automatically, you might want to implement a security check even before the automation does anything in Active Directory. So the workflow is, the workflow engine helps you do that. So what it does is, the moment an automation is triggered, the application will not perform any changes in Active Directory. Instead, it would raise a request stating that, hey, a request has been raised, and the request is for this action. And you'll be able to go through the list, and the list will contain all the information that you want, the history of the users, I mean the attribute level history of the users, so that you can go through the list, and only if you find that the request is valid, you can approve it, else you can reject the request. And similar to any workflow engine, you have assigning rules and notification rules too. So the moment a request is raised, it can be assigned to a specific technician for approval, and if it is rejected, you have notification rules that will notify the admins or any configured technicians within the application. So you have an option to review the request as well whenever the automation. So this is how a workflow diagram would look like. So you have 3 levels of approval. So you have a reviewer, approver, executor. Only when the executor says yes, the action will take place in Active Directory. If you feel that these many levels of approvals are not required, it's going to be a bit complicated, all I need is 1 level of approval. You can edit the workflow and then have the request as a mandatory technician. So you can just have an executor or an approver based on your requirement. And once again, for all these approving roles, the technician or the user has to be a member of ADManager Plus. I'm just going to make a point clear, because I often get questions stating that, can this approver be just a member in Active Directory and not a member of ADManager Plus? The answer is no. The technician or the user has to be a technician within ADManager Plus in order to approve a request that originates from ADManager Plus. Am I clear enough? Not different user accounts. So let's say if I'd like to approve a request within ADManager Plus, I should be a technician. So I should be a technician. I should be a technician within the application. So it's not a different naming account. It is just adding my account to the application. So it's the AD account I'm talking about. We don't use an internal account. It's the AD account. You just configure your account here. Yes, you just map the your user account here. That's it. You're welcome. So these are the criteria that could be notified. So whenever a request is created, reviewed, approved, executed, or rejected. And similarly, we have rules for notifications as well. I'm sorry, assigning rules as well. So that's it. So can I start with ADAudit Plus? Oh, sorry. Okay. So these are the two tabs that I was talking about, automation and automation policy. So I go to automation policy, I create a new policy, and then I can choose any task that I want. So the first task, I add a successive task, edit the number of days. If I don't want any number of days, I go for an instant task.
Okay, so is it in there that you can delete like the file or folder on the server? Is that one of the tasks that you can set?
So I was talking about the delete policy. And impersonation, one other thing now that I'm in the application. So this is where you go to add a technician. I go to AD Delegation, I go to add new technician, and the moment I go to add new technician, I browse for a user. This is going to be an AD user. We are not going to create a separate account here. We're just mapping the AD account. So I browse for the user, I choose a role. The role can be anything. The role contains the list of permissions that we just discussed. And you can grant this technician the access to all the OUs or any specific OU that you want. And then this is the trick. So impersonating as admin. So if impersonation is enabled for a technician, then the technician's permission will not remain, will still remain unchanged in Active Directory. So this is the impersonation. If this is unchecked, then the user will be using his or her native permissions, Active Directory permissions. Okay, so I guess Derek has covered much of ADAudit Plus. I'm not going to spend most time here. I'm just going to give you the features of the application, and so that I believe he has explained the technical background of this application on what it does and all the stuff. So I'm just going to give you an overview of this application, and then we'll have a break. So ADAudit Plus is going to be a change auditing software, and it answers 4 vital W's of any change auditing environment. And the 4 vital W's are who did what and when was the change done and at what time. So these are going to be the 4 vital W's. So all four vital W's will be answered by ADAudit Plus. And how does this application work? So this application looks into the security logs of your event viewer, and then it would fetch the events from the security logs, process it within the application, and then it would give it to you in the form of reports, alerts, and email notifications. So, and there's something interesting here. So we are talking about real-time alerts. So the events, whenever they are logged in your security logs, the application will be listening for the events real-time. So whenever an event is logged, the log will be captured and it will be emailed to you or reported to, you'll be getting a report or an alert based on whatever you have configured within the application. So this is the background. So the application looks for changes and then it would give you the information. If you think that real-time listening is going to consume a lot of bandwidth, you can even choose the event fetch interval. You can schedule this application to fetch event from the security logs once in every 1 hour or 2 hours based on your requirement. So this application can be customized. The event fetch can be customized within the application. And this application basically solves or functions or has 2 major functions. One is auditing, and the second one is alerting. So alerting, as you know, any undesirable change that takes place in Active Directory that you'd like to get noticed can be met by this application. So this application looks for events, and if you have a red X against the events, so an alert will be triggered. So that is alerting. And any auditing application has to have this in the sense it has to have a mechanism for controlling the growth of the database. So for which we have something called as archiving within the application. So if a log or if the size of your database grows more than, let's say, X gigs, and if you'd like to archive it, you can do that. So we have an archiving option available within the application. So what can you audit using the application? So these are the changes. So any AD user change, so user level modifications or computer level modification, group or contact level modification, so that falls under AD change, when did the user log in, and when did he log out, and all those changes. So this basically falls under a workstation logon activity. So we have something called workstation logon activity available in ADAudit Plus that could give you the exact time the user logged in and when did he log out. So any changes to the GPOs, DNS, or schema. So any minor change or a major change will be audited by this application when it comes to Active Directory. And one interesting feature is, I wouldn't call it a recent addition, but very lately we have released this feature, which is printer audit. So this would give you the exact jobs that a user has printed and when was the job printed and all those stuff. So a printer's usage. So all you need to do is just configure a print server and then get the reports out from the configured print server. So, and also removable storage audit. So if someone plugs in a USB stick into their PCs and then transfer certain files, you'd be able to get information on who did what and what was the time of the transfer and all those stuff. So these are some of the crucial aspects of, or some of the key features of any reporting software that ManageEngine has to offer. So custom reports. So apart from the events that this application has to offer, if you have any specific event that you'd like to monitor or track, you can create a custom report so that you'll be able to track those events based on your requirement. Again, all the reports can be scheduled into so that you need not generate the report. The application will generate the report and it'll email it to your inbox. And alerts and notifications. So any undesired change that you'd like to get notified. So let's say a user is removed from a domain admins group, or a user is added to a domain admins group, or a crucial account gets logged out, you'd like to get notified. You can just go ahead and create alerts and notifications. And customizable dashboard. So the dashboard of this application has graphs that could display information or crucial information about crucial AD changes, I would say. So that graph is completely customizable. If you don't want certain graphs to be present in the graph, instead you're looking for another report to be present in the graph, you can just go ahead and do that. Okay. That will be covered by Recovery Manager Plus. I believe Derek was explaining Recovery. Okay, you can do. Okay, so for which you'll have to again go back to ADManager Plus. So any kind of, this application only does auditing. So if you'd like to perform a management action, let's say you would like to revert a specific change, if you'd like to, if a user is removed from a group, if you'd like to add him to a group or remove from a group or any such changes, you'll have to go back to ADManager Plus, because management is dealt by ADManager Plus and auditing is taken care by ADAudit Plus. So you'll be able to get notified that this user was removed from the group by a user X and at this time, but you'll not be able to revert the change using ADAudit Plus. Okay. Okay. So I have similar kind of requests. So all that we're discussing right now are going to be inputs for our development team, because the features that you are talking about right now are not currently supported by the application, but we definitely do have it in our roadmap. So let me be frank with you. Let me say, so if a feature is requested by a customer, so we take all the feature requests and we work on the feature that needs more priority. In the sense, if 10,000 customers have asked for a specific feature, that will be given highest priority and our development team would start working on it. So that's how it works. Based on the number of counts or based on the requirements of the customers, we start working on feature requests. And having said that, we definitely have your requirement in our roadmap too. So I've had interactions with few of the customers as well, and I've also passed similar comments or feature requests to our team already. So. Yes. Yeah. So you have two ways of doing it. So you can, we have an automatic configuration. I believe you're talking about setting up the ACL entries, access control list. So setting up ACLs and enabling audit policies. So that can be done automatically or manually. So you have an option called as configure automatically. So the moment you hit configure automatically, all the configured domain controllers and the file servers, on all the domain controllers and file servers, the audit policies will be enabled and the event fetching will start to take place. So if you don't want that to happen automatically, you would like to enable it manually, we have the ACLs or the audit policy that needs to be enabled, the exact audit policy that needs to be enabled in the help document within the application itself. So the moment you log into the application, you have a look at the far right hand side, you have the help link here. So you go to the help link, you would find the exact audit policy that needs to be enabled for the auditing to take place. Okay. Okay. Now, ADAudit Plus uses WMI query every time, so it just goes to the event log, but it needs a credential. Every time when you configure a domain or a domain controller with this application, or to this application, you'll have to configure a credential which has sufficient privileges for fetching events from the specific domain controllers or file servers or workstations. So, yes, it's agentless. Yeah. Okay, it has its own, all the applications, ADManager and ADAudit Plus comes with a built-in database which is PostgreSQL. But if you'd like to have, instead of using the built-in database, if you'd like to have it in a centralized location, something like a SQL database, you can even do that. So we have options for pointing this application to log or create tasks in the SQL database too. So we can even do that. Yeah. Okay. When you have firewalls in between DMZs and all those stuff. I get it. So, yes, but just because I say that its roadmap is going to meet your requirement, but I have no other answers. But to be frank, it is definitely in our roadmap. So, as I said earlier, we have similar kind of requests because any kind of, talking about you guys here, you would be having, all of you might not be having the same kind of IT infrastructure. It would differ, and you'll be wanting the application to do something else for you. So we will be taking in all the requests, and based on the feasibility, the action or the feature will be implemented. So we do. Mm-hmm. You're talking about DMZ in place and all those stuff? Yeah, I get it. I get it. So thank you so much. So this is the dashboard that I was talking about. So if you don't, you have some of the most commonly used reports here. If you'd like to change or remove some of these reports and add few of the reports to the graph, you can even, to the dashboard, you can even do that. So the dashboard is customizable. And as I said earlier, if you're looking for a specific event other than what this application has to offer, you can just go ahead and create a custom report based on any specific event ID that you'd like to monitor. And file auditing. Now, similar to AD auditing, you have file auditing, so which would tell you any actions that have taken place in the configured file servers. Now, similar to domain controllers, you'll have to enable audit policies for file servers too. And again, it's going to be the same process. You can manually enable them, or you have separate ACL or audit policy settings that needs to be enabled in the help document. Okay, advanced file auditing. So you have advanced file auditing here, similar to the custom reports that we saw in Active Directory. You have advanced file auditing. So this is kind of advanced file auditing here. So if you'd like to audit your NetApp, your EMC, so you can just go ahead and create your event ID, access mask, and all those stuff, and then create your own rules based on which the application will be delivering the report to you. So you just create, you customize the event ID that you're going to query, and the application will be looking only for these events that you query, and then an email will be triggered to you. So this is something like custom reports for file auditing. It should be hitting the market in like 3 months' time. It's in its final phase of testing, so it should be hitting the market. And server auditing. This is for auditing individual servers. So auditing domain controllers, auditing file servers, individual servers, and also workstations. So I was talking about print server auditing, so number of jobs printed and all those stuff. So that comes under print server auditing. If you'd like to know who logged on to a server terminally, or was it a direct login, all sorts of information will be present in the server audit report. So this is dedicated for retrieving information from servers, from standalone servers. So this is something that I was talking about here, file integrity monitoring. So what is the difference between file server monitoring and file integrity monitoring? Is if you are going to audit changes on a shared folder, you go for file monitoring. So if you are going to monitor changes on local folders, so that comes under file integrity monitoring. So shared and local folders. So we'll be able to audit both those file types as well. So shared files as well as local files. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Any questions for me, gentlemen? Mm-hmm. Mm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Since this application, it is restricted to the licensing policy. Let's say you purchase the license for 10 domain controllers, and all of a sudden you have added 10, and all of a sudden you'd like to remove 3 of them and replace them with the new ones. So you'll have to manually remove them and then add the new ones, because this application has to set the audit policies on those domain controllers once again. So it's not going to be... yes, we'll have to add the domain controllers into the application. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. So, and also I'd give you my card. If you have any questions for me now or maybe later, you can always drop an email, and it can be for a different AD application too, so I'll be able to point you to the right team. So, and also you have everything in the help document, and also during evaluation phase, you're most welcome to contact support, and we are available 24/5. So you can give us a call anytime. So you have 3 means of reaching us from within the application itself. So all you need to do is just any ManageEngine application, go to the support tab within the application. You can reach us via email. You can initiate a chat session or give us a call. You would find our direct line as well as our toll-free number there. So we work 24/5, so you shouldn't be having trouble reaching us. So thank you very much for your time, and hope this session was informative. Thank you.